I'm going to call you out on something. You ready? Are you seated?
I'm ready. I got my, hold on. Let me get my scotch ready. 4 to 5. Okay, go for it.
I'm going to pull the race card on you. Are you ready?
This has never happened before on the Into the Impossible podcast. Go for it.
There's a tendency for a white person, upon seeing a highly talented black person, to say, oh, it's a gift. It's just genetic. It's just, rather than say, boy, you must have worked really hard to achieve that. And that disconnect manifested in your very question to me. Because it was not even in you to imagine that I wasn't good at communicating at some early point. When I say, well, how can I get better at this? Let me think about this. Here's an example of how it got manifested. Okay. When I got my first invitation to appear on The Daily Show with Jon Stewart, I said, oh my gosh, that's dangerous. This guy's all in your face. Let me watch a few of these shows. So I watched it. And I timed how many seconds he gives his guests to speak before he interrupts comedically. And if you're a politician, you've got your stump speech and you got to get it out, and he interrupts it, oh my gosh, you're flustered and you're deer in the frickin' headlights. So I said, that is not going to happen to me. So I timed this. So I said, I'm going to parcel my information that I'm going to share in that show in 6 to 9 second increments, so that when he does jump in, the thought has been completed. Then we can both laugh, and then I go on to the next thought, and there's no deer in the headlights. Not only that, I monitored how far back he reaches for a current event that he will then throw into the mix. And he doesn't go back more than about 3 days. There's a news cycling, because if he makes a current event reference and it's not current, then it doesn't hit as a joke. You have to say, oh, well, that happened last week. Is that relevant now? So I would study current events for the previous 3 days deeply. I'd bring that to bear on those conversations, and I'm invited back 14 times. And what do people say? Neil, you're such a natural on his show. Oh, Neil, the chemistry between you is so natural. Well, you have a gift. This is what I lived through. Another one, I give a public talk.
Sorry. I have to interrupt, because I have to tell you something, because part of what my essence is expressing gratitude. Not only did I know that story about you, I learned it from David Spergel 2 years ago, before I myself went on Ben Shapiro's show, when I felt the terror of that you must have felt the first time. Who am I? I'm some astrophysicist from California. I was going on the show that could be seen by millions of people. By the way, he's very controversial, as you know. And I said, David, what does Neil do? And David explained to me exactly the vignette that you just told me. So I know better than anybody. And not only did I know that, Neil, I followed the Tyson approach to being in a high stress interview situation. So I just want you to know, I would never underestimate the amount of hard work you put in. And I want to thank you, because you enabled me to perform marginally okay, not as well as you did on Ben's show, but nevertheless, I used the Tyson technique. And that was very key to my success.
Well, thank you, and I'm going to add to that. Thanks for adding that, for throwing that in the mix there. So on another occasion, I give a public talk, right, and then the people enjoy it and they clap at the end, and then so I get 2 responses typically. All right, I'm binning them into 2 bins, but there's nuances there as well. One kind of response is, "You were having such a good time up there on stage," okay, and another response is, "You were working hard up there." And to a person, those who say I was working hard are school teachers, because they saw what I was doing and how I was doing it and why I was doing it. And they appreciated the invested effort for what that was. So I'm just saying, no, I don't think any of it is a gift. And no teacher in the history of my life would have said so. Not only that, I got another one for you. You ready? So I've written
you're writing 14, a book right now as we
15
speak.
books.
Show me your hand.
My latest.
Show me your hand.
It'll be published this afternoon. Yes. My verbal SATs were okay. But again, they weren't the kind of score where you'd, hey, watch that person. They'll go far. It wasn't any of that. Well, 15 years after I'd taken the SATs and gotten my PhD, and I have a column that I write for Natural History magazine, one of the more honorific things I've done, because that's a magazine that Stephen Jay Gould wrote for, and we were bookending the middle section of that with he wrote on nature and I wrote on the universe. But anyhow, I got a letter in the mail from the Educational Testing Service. These are the purveyors of the SAT, and just to show you what of a grip they have on us, it was like, what happened to my scores? It's still affecting you, like emotionally. I said, well, they must know something because it was addressed to Dr. Neil deGrasse Tyson. So I said, okay, somebody updated their file. And I open it up, and it says, Dear Dr. Tyson, we read a recent essay of yours, and we liked how it worked and what it did. We want to excerpt these 3 paragraphs for our verbal SAT that we are writing for the reading comprehension. And it was like, I wanted to say, fuck you. Okay, that was my first thought. Then I said, no, that wouldn't be productive. And I said, okay, yes, I grant you permission for this. So this is an organization where I take an exam where my score is not high enough for anyone to say he'll go far, and now they're coming to me for my writing sample to put on a test that they're going to administer to other people.
Baby,
that's messed up. Okay, that's just messed up. And in there later on, okay, a lot of that content would be called, and I would write Astrophysics for People in a Hurry, which was like a bestseller. Oh, you have it? Yes, thank you for picking up a copy. And that was on the New York Times bestseller list for 82 weeks. It was on so long that my next book came out, and they both showed up briefly together on the list. So when I hear people saying, "Oh, you have a gift," you must have known. This is not. I don't go through life relying on what other people say about my potential.
Right.
I had to generate it from within. Otherwise, I would be deluded, either thinking I'm greater than I am because family members love you, or less than I am because they're people who have no clue what they're talking about. And that's my long reply to your very simple and direct question about what I'm doing with my life.
Now eviscerates my next question, which also came courtesy of a fellow African-American physicist from the Bronx who went to your rival school, DeWitt Clinton, and that's Stefan Alexander. And he said, and often in his life, he was pushed towards athletics and not towards science. And he said that of you too, that your teachers were pushing you towards So I did do this research, to make sure that, that this is a common theme. And it's just the question of when I talk to people like Jim Gates or, when I talk to Moya McTeer or whatever, there are 2 types. I'm going to not play the race card because I can't play the race card. I play the Jewish card sometimes, but I don't usually do that. But how is that pressure? Because you're layered on top of that as well. Like, not only do you have to do this, Jim Gates or Stefan Alexander, but you also have to speak for, that to me, I've said it to them. I've said it to my friend Gentry Patrick, who's actually engaged to my cousin now here in UCSD. So he's now the only relative that's been on the show. I said, you guys pay a tax. You African-American colleagues of mine, you pay an extra tax. I don't have to pay it. But I wonder, in our age right now, are things getting better? Are things improving? When I'm told that my department is systemically racist, for example, I push back. I hate racists, Neil. I punch them in the frickin' face. But I know that the system has a lot of lacunae in it. And so what do I do as someone who wants to do well and doesn't want to say that, I'm an anti-racist and I have to do anti-racism in order to prove I'm anti-racist? It seems like Michael Shermer, our mutual friend, says that's a tautology, basically. Do you have any advice for academia or scientific research for how to make it better, or maybe by reducing the burden that African-American colleagues have to pay?
Just at all times, ask yourself, would you say this to someone who had lighter color skin? Would you say this to someone who is female? Would you say this to someone who is, just ask if you would say exactly that same thing. Okay. Well, when I give a talk and I have a white person come up to me and say, oh, that was articulate. Would you say that to a white person? No, you wouldn't. All right. So why are you saying it to a black person? And I think that's the litmus test. Just sort of, when I'm waiting in line to get on the plane and I have a first class ticket and the flight attendant, this is before I was recognizable, the flight attendant would say, oh, this is the first class line. Like I didn't know, I couldn't figure it out on my own and I belonged on another line. Would you say that to a white person standing in front of you, such as that? And this is even if I'm in a suit and tie. So that's really, I think it works. It works really well, and I do that all the time. It's how I see it in others, and I might even see it in myself. And so I try to, and it's a constant editing, but I don't want to say it as though it's something that is a chore. It's something that is it is a duty. It is this way of progressive thinking. I think is what all of us should be invoking.